Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me on this latest edition of the Dieting Dietitian. Today we're going to be talking about fats, and particularly good fats. And to help me explore this issue, someone who's got a lot of experience in it is my good friend Buddy Ojeda. I've known Buddy for 20 years, and you are a CN?
Yeah, certified nutritionist. Got my CN through an organization called NINE, National Institutes of Nutritional Education.
Okay.
And it's something that served me well because it gave me a little background, or more background, on just anatomy and physiology, the use of supplements, diet, exercise, that sort of stuff. So it really rounded out my expertise in the field of health and wellness.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before we get into talking about fats or essential fatty acids, can you tell my audience how you got into the natural health industry?
It's funny. If I had to trace it all the way back to when it was first, like something that was interesting to me, I was in my previous life. I was a broadcaster. I did radio.
Oh, awesome!
So at the time when I was going to broadcast school, I was still working a regular job, and this was in New York City. So the job itself was a 9 to 5, and then I was doing broadcast school in the morning, and then working. So I was doing like 10, 12-hour days, and I was young, but I was tired. And one of my fellow classmates in broadcast school said to me, "Have you heard about this thing called bee pollen? It's good for energy." I'm like, bee pollen? Like, what?
Yeah.
I'm talking about early 80s, right? So I went to, I think at the time, it might have been a GNC or something, and I bought some bee pollen. It worked. I felt more energetic, and so that was like my first entree into this. Years later, when I moved to Florida, and this is like now in the mid-'80s, I was listening to a station that talked a lot about health and wellness. And so there were shows on for nutrition and herbalism and all these things, and that really fascinated me. And the thing I think that made it really interesting is that I could have actually control, to some extent, over my body through exercise, through diet, through supplementation. I thought that was fascinating.
Yep.
And that was what got me into it. And then years later, I was still doing radio, but then I started doing part-time at a major health food store. It was a privately owned store that became bought out by a major chain. And just one thing led to another. It's now 20 some odd years. It started in 1996 in this industry. So it's a bunch of years now that I've been selling vitamins or talking about vitamins.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how did you get into, I know you have a number of things that you are an expert on for you got to qualify that expert because expert, the joke is X is former, spurt means drip, so I'm a former drip. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean there's areas of expertise,
yeah.
Just say, and I know that one of your major focuses is essential fatty acids. How did you get into that being a focus for you?
Because it was the first gig out of this health food store, the first opportunity to work on the vendor side of things, not the retail side, was with a great company, at the time was privately owned, called Health from the Sun. And they specialize in essential fatty acids and fiber and, omega-6s, omega-3s. And it was a huge learning experience. For like 3.5 years, I learned from the nutritionist on staff. She was awesome, and I just learned a lot. And it was, to me, I thought like, wow, this is like pulling back the curtain on EFAs and all the benefits of fats, and that fats are not as, it shouldn't be vilified the way that people vilify them, thinking that fats are bad, let's avoid them. No, there are certain fats actually beneficial to you.
Well, and you've seen the trend over the years. I remember in the 80s, it was all about, you want no fat, no cholesterol, and now it's gone. And now it's like people don't do sugars, don't do carbs, you got to do, high fats. But then that's important because not all fats are created equal.
They're not. And some people think, if you look at calories and you look at proteins, fats, and carbs, you think, okay, protein, 14 calories per gram, carbs, 4 calories per gram. Same thing with carbs. And then you look at fats, all of a sudden it's 9 calories. You're like, oh, no, I got to avoid that. That's not, because fats, good fats particularly, make you feel full. You don't tend to eat as often, so you can go longer. You have more energy. They're a deeper reserve for storage, energy. And just because they're structurally part of the body. I mean, every cell membrane has a lipid, membrane. It's made of fats. So you need fats. You need fats to help digest fat-soluble nutrients, vitamins A, D, K. So all fat is not made the same, as you said, and there are some essential fats that we don't make. You've got to get from the diet.
Okay. So let's go into that. Let's talk about some of the different types of fats.
Yeah. So you've got. See, if you take fats or lipids as a category, you can break them down into three basically healthy areas. You got saturated fat, and not to get too technical, but saturated fat, when you look at a fat molecule, it's made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms, right? And so the carbon chain, think of it as a zipper, that these carbon chains are connected together. A saturated fat means that there are no available bonds that are open, that you can put anything else on. So these tend to be solid at room temperature. Think of a saturated fat like butter or coconut oil, right? Often better to cook with these fats because they don't go rancid. They're not going to oxidize anywhere near as fast as some of the others. Then you've got monounsaturated fats. So at least one of those bonds are available. And that would be more like olive oil, which you could still cook with, but not. There's a I think it's just called a smoke point that you don't want to go above.
Yes.
And those tend to be liquid at room temperature, but also solidify when you chill them. So if you ever put great olive oil into the refrigerator, you notice it gets a little cloudy.
Yeah.
And then you've got the polyunsaturated fats. Those are the ones that are missing a bunch of different double bonds. And these are the fish oils, these are the seeds, these are the nuts oils that people get. And these are the ones that are really critical. I mean, they're all beneficial to some extent, but the omegas, the polyunsaturated omegas, or the PUFAs as they call them, PUFAs, are really essential because those have your essential omega-3s and omega-6s. And those are the ones that can go rancid, so you got to be really careful. But if you get them from a clean source, and ideally if it's a vegetable, sort of like a plant source, if they're organic, that's even better.
Okay, so let's talk about omega-3s. They get a lot of attention. You hear a lot of positive things about them. Let's go into a little bit of detail. I mean, what are some of those benefits?
So omega-3s have been shown to help with a number of different things. If you think about the breakdown process, the elongation of the molecule in the body, when you take an omega-3, it has to be broken down. Typically, you start out with omega-3 as alpha-linolenic acid. That's what you find in flaxseed oil. That has to be broken down several steps to get to EPA or DHA, which is that stuff that everybody seems to be looking at and really beneficial for you. But that breakdown process also shares some of the enzymes that break down omega-6s. So the thing about omega-3s is if you have enough of them in your system, they help with inflammatory issues, healthy inflammation in the body. They can help with lipid levels, serum lipid levels. So whether it's lowering cholesterol, whether it's lowering LDL specifically, whether it's lowering triglycerides, whether it's upping your HDL, these are all benefits of omega-3s. You think also for brain health. I mean, 60% of your brain, 75% of your brain is water. The other 60% is actually fat. So, the joke is if people call you a fathead, don't get offended because you're a fathead. So omega-3s are really critical for the functioning of the brain, for the gray matter, for the neurotransmitter process that takes place. We talk about inflammation, but also the lubrication of joints, as we get older. These joints start to get a little creakier and it's harder. Utilizing omega-3s, particularly for joint health, is really beneficial. Heart health, cardiovascular health, blood pressure concerns, all are benefits of omega-3s, and we should all be consuming. If you're a vegan, there are plenty of vegetarian sources, vegan sources, and if you're okay with some animal sources, then fish oil is a great source, like mackerel and sardines, really small fish. Those are great sources of omega-3s.
Okay. So we don't hear about them as much, but there are some positive attributes of omega-6s as well.
There are, because people think, and it's that cascade, that sort of that shared enzyme cascade that I was mentioning. So the problem is, it's not that omega-6s are bad. It's that we get too many in the diet. And so back in the day, in the paleo days, there was more of a ratio of 3 to 1, three omega-6 to 1 omega-3s. Nowadays, with all the processed foods, with all the chips, with all the stuff, you're talking about 10 up to 15 times more. So 15 to 1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3s. And the problem is, if you've got this shared cascade of enzymes, meaning the same enzymes that help break down omega-3s into the usable forms are the same ones used for omega-6. All of a sudden, if you're shuttling all that to omega-6s, there isn't much omega-3 available to provide those health benefits I mentioned. Okay. So it's the amount, not that omega-6s are bad. However, certain omega-6s are better than others. You think of evening primrose oil, borage oil, black currant seed oil are great sources. The more popular ones nowadays, sunflower seed oil, safflower oil, grapeseed oil, which is an oil you can actually cook with. It has a smoke point that you can still cook with. Those are great sources of omega-6 that aid in benefits to the body as well.
Okay. So we talked about that ratio. Now, when you say the diet, you mean obviously our modern diet. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, 'cause I know it really depends on what your traditional diet is, but when we see that with processing foods, that those ratios have greatly changed.
Yeah, unfortunately, because so manufacturers want to do something as cheaply as possible. They want to give you that sense of fat, right? So they'll put in really bad omega-6 oils, like you think of corn oil. Not only can you be getting genetically modified oil, but the fact that this oil is really not that beneficial in its current form. Yeah. So those processed foods, the chips, the cookies, sometimes ice cream, salad dressings, you think, oh, this is great. Got a salad, and put salad dressing on it. Maybe loaded with omega-6s that are not good for you. You know, better to take some grapeseed oil, avocado oil, almond oil, and drizzle that over there. And don't forget some omega-3s. Put some of that over your salad as opposed to salad dressing. Maybe squeeze a little lemon, a little lime, and off you go to the races, and you're doing much better.
Yeah, that was one of the things I liked about the paleo diet, was that they really focus on that healthy ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. Because again, you know, in that the paleo diet focuses on fruits, vegetables, proteins, and healthy fats.
Correct. I mean, the ratio is really key, right? Yeah. You got to consciously think about, let's bring down those processed omega-6s, let's add more omega-3s, let's even up that ratio a little bit better. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Now, can we briefly touch on DHA and EPA? Because those seem to be, again, like especially DHA seems to be everywhere now. We're seeing it in milk you can buy at the store. We're seeing it in infant formulas.
Right.
What is so great about DHA?
Docosahexaenoic acid, DHA, is a breakdown product, a step or two removed from EPA. So eicosapentaenoic acid, EPA. So the thing about it is, if you're getting a fish oil source of your omega-3s, then you're immediately starting with EPA. That's a good thing. You're getting more immediate benefits. You don't have to rely on the conversion of it. And by the way, if you have certain metabolic issues, metabolic syndrome, if you've got issues with diabetes, it's going to be more difficult for you to break down and convert the flaxseed oil into the EPA. So better for you to get the direct sources. But that EPA then converts into DHA, and there's a mechanism for it to come back as well, for actually to return to EPA. DHA is great for brain health. If you think about in a developing infant, whether in a mom's womb or breastfed, it's been shown that children breastfed, and or if the moms have been consuming DHA-rich foods or liquids, oils, that the child is healthier, brighter usually, meaning more intelligent. Immune issues seem to be less frequent with kids that have been fed the DHA. You know, the joke around my house is my kid, we weren't able to, he was born cesarean, so he didn't have the benefit of the vaginal canal and being inoculated with probiotics. But so, and we couldn't breastfeed as well. So I think it was about 6 months in, I started giving little gel caps of fish oil. And he was very verbal and articulate very early on. And I would say to my wife, I go, see, it's the fish oil. She goes, no, it's because he's my son.
Of course, yeah.
So, you know, the fish oil had nothing to do with it, it's just because it's her son. So to me, it's so integral to start out. You have a little daughter, she's so bright and she's great. You know, kids, even if you didn't get to do that when you were breastfeeding, at age 2, 4, 6, 8, start giving them the DHA-rich omegas, and you'll see wonderful results. I mean, there's even benefits, when it comes to things like behavior and ADHD issues.
Yes.
Right.
Now, and you said that EPA and DHA are very similar, but EPA has some different benefits for human health. What are those?
More anti-inflammatory in nature.
Okay.
So if you're looking for reducing systemic inflammation, I know there's a bunch of herbs out there and they're all wonderful, but since omegas give you other benefits, if you're looking for anti-inflammatory benefits, EPA is really ideal for that. And typically you're going to get, if in any typical fish oil supplement, you're going to get slightly higher EPA than you are to DHA. But if an inflammation, blood pressure, blood sugar issues are a concern, increasing the elasticity of the blood vessel walls, the epithelial tissue, EPA is ideal for situations like that.
Okay. The reason I asked is that I know I wasn't as familiar with some of those anti-inflammatory properties, but I was at FSU for my graduate degree. There's a gentleman who did a lot of research on EPA and helping with mood-related issues.
Yeah.
And I thought that was fascinating. So I tried, when I do it, I like to make sure that I have DHA and EPA in my essential fatty acid supplements, so I'm getting the best of both worlds.
Ideally, right? Yeah. Because as I mentioned, if you're supplying the brain, which is primarily made up of fat, you give it the direct sources of these type of essential fatty acids, DHA, EPA specifically, you're going to aid in so many things: mood, cognition, memory. It's even showing that age-related issues in seniors improve with DHA and EPA supplementation.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like some possible benefits for like any kind of cognitive decline.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
It's never too late to start taking your EPA and DHA. And once again, if you're a vegan or vegetarian, don't want to do any fish oil, then just rely on the vegetarian sources.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. What vegetarian sources do you like, or have you seen out there?
Flaxseed oil is the traditional one, but there's chia seeds as well. Believe it or not, and this is something that both Chris and I are familiar with, hemp seed oil is a really great source of omega-3s. Black cumin seed oil is also rich in omega-3s along with omega-6s, but it's a good omega-6s. So there are a number of different, maybe you'll have walnuts. Even if you never take an oil supplement or a tablespoon of oil, you'll have walnuts. That's a great source. If you love almonds, also a great source of omega-3s. So nuts and seeds typically have high levels of omega-3s.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because right now, hemp oil is and phytocannabinoids are so hot, so you can really find a supplement that could give you some good essential fatty acids and some phytocannabinoids to nourish that endocannabinoid system.
Absolutely, and as you and I have learned, that the endocannabinoid system, this system in the body that accepts and takes in these plant compounds, cannabinoids, and the terpenes, the sister compounds, the third leg of that three-legged stool are omegas. Omegas 3 and 6 actually aid in the function of the endocannabinoid system. So you could be deficient in these omegas, take all the CBD in the world, take beta-caryophyllene till the cows come home, and not notice much of a benefit. So in order for the endocannabinoid system to work more efficiently, for the receptors to be produced when they need to be, for even some of the endocannabinoids themselves to be synthesized, omegas are really important, and there's such a deficiency, unfortunately. Too much omega-6, not much omega-3, and then people wonder why they have so many issues. Well, you need to probably supplement with a little omega-3 in your system.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then talking about the other fat that popped in my mind, black cumin seed oil. That's very popular right now. So you could supplement with black cumin seed oil, not only get some of those beneficial fats, but also the black cumin has some benefits for a healthy inflammation response.
Yeah, there's specific constituents, thymoquinone, thymohydroquinone, thymol. These are constituents naturally found in this black cumin seed oil. They have anti-inflammatory benefits, they have antioxidant benefits. It's funny because in this industry, both you and I, Chris, we go into a store and we'll say, okay, what do you sell this for? They say, this is really, what do you sell? Well, it's for everything. Well, it's not for everything. It's not a panacea, but black cumin seed oil does have some really great benefits, not the least of which is that they're rich in these omegas.
Okay. Awesome. So there is some options out there that you could find something possibly that might have black cumin seed and some omegas and some hemp,
Right.
or something that just more focuses on omegas with some phytocannabinoids by itself.
Yeah, I don't know if we can mention brand names, but there are combinations of those three, of the cannabinoids, the terpenes, and the cannabinoids, terpenes, and the omegas. And you can get them in delicious tasting what are called twists, and you can use them straight out of the bottle onto a tablespoon or teaspoon. You're getting all three. You're getting benefit to the endocannabinoid system. You're getting those sister compounds. One of the terpenes that we talk about a lot, that I deal with in my workspace is beta caryophyllene. It's got gastroprotective benefits. It's got natural anti-inflammatory benefits. It's got benefits for detoxification and immune support. So you're getting that as well. These terpenes are often, you find them in the flower of plants. They aid in either attracting certain insects to help with pollination and other things, or sometimes to repel insects from plants. But these flower components, think of lavender, peppermints, anything that has a really strong aroma to it or aromatic quality, those are terpenes. But you can find combinations of terpenes, cannabinoids, and omegas, all three, and you'd really be serving yourself really well. Absolutely.
Okay, that's good to know. I really appreciate your time. Is there anything you want to, any kind of knowledge you want to impart with our viewers?
All fats are not created equal. That omegas 3 and 6 are really critical for life functioning from when you're a child all the way until your adulthood and becoming a senior. It's never too late to start taking omegas. That particularly omegas 3s and 6 are really essential. Body can't make them, so you've got to get them from a dietary source. And that if you just want to find out more, there are resources online. I love to go on PubMed.gov as a resource. There's MedlinePlus.com. That's also a great resource. There's WebMD. Just type in, do a really Google search on omega-3s, omega-6s, and don't necessarily go to sites that show company products. Look at scholarly researched articles that you can find on these sites. And some of them are a little technical, some of them are easier to read, but just there's so much information out there. But everyone should be, in your family, should be taking some omega-3s, some omega-6s, whether through supplementation or foods that are rich in those. And, don't be afraid of fats. They're good for you.
Sweet. Thank you, buddy. I really appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dieting Dietitian. Check out my Instagram at Dieting Dietitian. In fact, if you look at it from the last couple of days, you'll see pictures that Buddy and I took when we were out on the road in Mobile and Pensacola and Crestview. So, and hopefully we'll get to hang out again soon.
Awesome.
Sweet. Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir.
Take care. Thank you, guys.